Sometimes you just want to get lost in a game world. There are certain games out there that have massive open maps with tons of places to explore and maybe even tons of things to collect. Hi folks, today we're talking about 12 recent huge maps that will overwhelm you in the best way. Now before we get started, we do want to first mention that we're not covering generic massive game maps, specifically outer space stuff like No Man's Sky, Starfield, or Elite Dangerous. I get it, that's galactic and huge and deceptive, but we're going to focus on games that have more traditional maps. Sure, they may not be physically as large, but they're still plenty big enough. These are game maps that are really maps in the traditional sense, just very, very big ones.
He was a kind man, my father. A scientist. Doesn't make sense he would build such a thing.
Let's kick off this list with Just Cause 4. In terms of gameplay substance, this one isn't exactly made of pure gold, but Just Cause 4 does have one heck of a map. All the Just Cause games have these massive islands to explore. But Just Cause 4 is the biggest and somehow seems like one of the games that's worth perusing the most. Of course, with a lot of these big maps, quantity over quality is a problem or can be sometimes, but I think what Just Cause did is manage to sort of make things a little bigger without necessarily sacrificing the big destruction. Now don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stuff that's not worth looking at or doing in the game, to be frank, but a lot of the things worth looking at or doing in the game are pretty damn cool, and they discarded some of the extra stuff to get the map as big as possible. Ignore some of the systems piggybacking on Breath of the Wild, and I think you end up with a game that's a good time. The map in length and width is one of the largest, and the fun factor of Just Cause's bounding physics, caused either by your rope or the many explosions that you cause all around, it's always there. It may not have the most reasons to spend a lot of time running around exploring this clearly South American-inspired map, but it's really big and makes you want to cause lots of mayhem, and they probably succeed. Next up is Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a little bit different of a vibe than we've seen so far. It's not the kind of game with an endlessly sprawling massive map. They actually filled the whole entire map up with lots of different stuff, pretty densely. If we're talking about creativity, in my opinion, Red Dead Redemption 2 may be the best we're talking about. The detail is painstaking. The types of terrain vary wildly depending on where you end up. There are mountains, there are lakes, rivers, forests. In some areas, there's even a swamp. And of course, tons of deserts. The audio design changes based on where you are. The weather changes. In most of the map, it gets colder as you go further north. You will see towns, you'll see ranches, trapper camps, cabins, all kinds of stuff. The game is not endless towns to explore or anything. You're not seeing one every single minute you ride, but that's a lot more of a wilderness-inspired map. It's less civilization-heavy and more environment-heavy, which, I mean, frankly, duffs my hat to them. It does take a pretty substantial amount of time to move from place to place, but it never feels boring. Not for an instant. If you've got the patience for an experience like RDR2, which personally I definitely do, then it's probably the best of both worlds. Good sized map, beautiful, and certainly never boring.
I did what had to be done. A statue may be overdoing it.
Coming in next, we have Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I've said it before, but it bears repeating. This game is huge. It is exhausting how big it is and everything that there is to do. Again, there's very much that quantity versus quality trade-off going on here, but nothing on the map is particularly bad either. It's simply not as good as the bits of the game that are mandatory. There's obviously a lot of crap to wade through, but honestly, who cares? If anything, Assassin's Creed games are usually too short for what they are, in my opinion at least. Well, in the last few years, really. Just because they give you a full game, that's a lot of fun, and I at least want more. Although some people complain about it, giving a bunch of cobbled together islands to sail to, along with multiple mainland locations, well, if you're craving more, that's there. A lot of these areas follow the basic open world templates, with forts to capture and bandit hideouts to clear and so on. What makes this one feel particularly huge is the massive open sea you have to travel across to even get to these islands. There's a point in the story where you have to go right to the bottom, most major island, and it really drives home how massive this map really is, and the amount of time it takes to even get there is appreciable to say the least. Next on the list is Ghost Recon Breakpoint. As much as people really gave this game crap when it came out, and seriously, numbers were not high from the outset, a lot of the complaints came from areas that are really not beginner-friendly. Investing hours in building up your gear through the progression system makes the whole thing feel different after a while. And the game's map, although maybe a little empty in spots in the early game, does end up feeling a lot more full when you're confident in how your gameplay is going to go. It doesn't really reinvent the wheel in terms of open world zones. I mean, it's Ubisoft's thing at this point. We know what it is, we know what we're doing. It's an open world map, but it did give us a really big one to explore. The island in this game is larger than the map in Wildlands, and the map goes all the way to 781.9 square miles. That is 2,025 square kilometers for the total area, including water versus playable land. That is a really big map, and if we're not talking islands, if we're talking about mountains, it just has tons of them, which is a beautiful thing in a big map, in my opinion. Mountains are what make games like Breath of the Wild and Skyrim take that much extra time to explore. They're the thing that you have to navigate generally, not straightforward going kind of terrain. Like I said, the zones on the map are not crazy interesting by themselves, but there's some beautiful mountains and hills, and if you're willing to give the map some time, it really becomes apparent why it's nice. And again, if you ignore the issues that it has that make the early game a frustration and really dig into it after you get past that, I do think Breakpoint is an underrated game. Next up, we have Stranding. As much as the first few hours of this game take place in this samey, sort of decrepit hellhole, the rest of the map is much nicer looking and much bigger. The starting zone is a tutorial in every sense of the word. You get the general gameplay loop of the game with, stuff sort of logically planned out. But when you get to explore the rest of the map, that's where it gets interesting. That's where you get the full potential of what Death Stranding really is. You get massive mountains, enormous areas of Chiral Wasteland to avoid. Yes, I said Chiral Wasteland. Where can you get that? You can't get that anywhere else but Death Stranding. Let's just be completely clear. The rest of the map involves moving from east to west across these massive, huge, sprawling territories, and for a walking sim, this game gets that said about it, but I don't agree. I think that yes, they did center it around walking, but you employ a lot of vertical mounting gear. You employ a lot of stuff that lets you set up routes where you don't have to walk that much anymore. That's kind of the loop of the game, if you want to understand. It takes a while to get anywhere here. They've even got a few tools to let you move faster. Like I said, zip lines. You eventually can set up a network of zip lines to move quickly. It kind of has a long-term building idea, like a city simulator type game. The phone kind of thing. It's not the same at all, but it is sort of centered around this long-term walking stuff, where essentially you're building a network that allows you to minimize walking as much as possible. It does take a while to get to that point, and again, I think the game actually succeeds at being much more than a walking simulator, but with how unique it is and how big and sprawling the map is, I think for the people who are on board with this game, the map is great. I certainly am on board with this game. I love this game. Some people don't love this game. Some people even hate this game. But it's a unique map, and it's currently one of the biggest maps that we have since this game was released. Next up, we've got Cyberpunk 2077. Now, when you compare it to the map in The Witcher 3, the Cyberpunk map is nowhere near as large. At launch, the map was heavily criticized for being empty and difficult to navigate, but with lots of updates has gotten a lot better. Not only have they filled it up with more interesting encounters, but they've added a functioning police response system to make it feel more like a real city. And as a city, Night City feels vertically huge. Sure, on the map where you're just looking down at it directly down, it seems small relatively. It's devoted entirely to the city with some wastelands around the outside. And that's it, but actually driving around in the city or interacting with various pieces of it, you get uniquely cyberpunk aesthetic, a lot of white cyberpunk type streets, and in terms of design makes use of much more area, if you understand what I mean. There's more gameplay area if you're considering things like verticality. You're winding your way through shopping districts and vacant lots. This whole city feels very real. Some places in the in-game map are intentionally empty, like the outskirts of the Badlands, for instance. It's really just there for flavor more than anything, but there's still a lot to see and do. Is it as big as the map in The Witcher 3? No. Does it feel more creative, built up and big in its own way? Yeah, I think so. Coming in next is Far Cry 6. A lot of people say that the Far Cry formula has gotten kind of stale. And while that may be true at times, but it is what it is. It's not going to change. A whole lot of the developers almost equate it to comfort food at times. That is, Ubisoft developers. They like making it. It's something that they know people like. Does it need to change? Not necessarily, although I would maybe put that it would be cool if they tried a few new things here and there. But in the meantime, let's just be fair. We've got Far Cry maps. this one's definitely one of the largest. Does the usual Far Cry thing of giving you a vast open world for you to explore and gives you outposts to clear, mini games to take part in, plenty of animals to hunt. They pepper the world with a fair amount of extra stuff. It's not massive amounts of extra stuff, and sometimes, as you go through a Far Cry map, you feel that in between the action, there's a lot of just nothing happening. That doesn't mean the map is empty. That doesn't mean there's nothing interesting to find or do, and this one's particularly nice in the visual department. The setting, obviously a little controversial at the time, an unnamed Caribbean island that kind of sort of looks like Cuba. In the same way that it's got such a very small taste of Los Angeles in it, Vice City is Miami. Or I mean, not even close to what Miami looks like. Grand Theft Auto, you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, it's a good looking map. There's plenty to do, and it's the largest map by far in the series. Next up, Horizon Forbidden West. Yes, the map is a lot bigger than the map from the first game, but in some ways this one's not exactly as forward of a change as some of the other maps in this series. I mean, it's an impressive map, don't get me wrong, but it's building on a formula from the original game, again, perfectly fine. I don't think the original game needed a ton of improvement, and they made a fantastic game in this one. They added various biomes like deserts and swamps and mountains, and the underwater exploration is a big part of Forbidden West. What it gives to you when you're traveling through the map, it showcases a lot of cool stuff that you've got these huge robot dinosaurs roaming around and mountains and swamps. Man, it looks good. It really does. Everything's kind of beautiful. The game's world is spread out. There's a lot of wide open, pretty sparsely populated spots in the map, but you're intrigued by things. There's cool stuff to check out, and eventually, stuff in those areas that's worth checking out does make it obvious that they're not just beauty. The story parts and interesting machines to fight is pretty engaging, and yes, it's essentially an expansion of everything in the original Horizon game, but that's a good thing, guys. Like I said, they found a formula that most of us really enjoyed with Horizon and then made it bigger, and that's kind of what we expect with a sequel at bare minimum, and particularly where, in my opinion, Horizon, not Forbidden West, is a unique series. I mean, look at this world. What more can you ask for? Next on the list is Elden Ring, which is a game where the map is huge in a lot of ways. Yes, here's the thing. To call this game impressive is to severely undersell it, as I would say, it's one of the most impressive maps, if not the single most impressive map of recent years. It's not just big, it looks beautiful. It's filled with unique locations, small dungeons, enormous multi-level castles, and unforgiving mountainsides, swamps that make you feel like you can't actually navigate. It is as fun to hate as it is to love for that exact reason, and I'm not talking about it as in the game, but as in the map. The map itself is cool as hell. You get ruined cities, you get so much, it's overwhelming how much is in this game, but on the other hand, it's also somehow hard to get lost in. I don't know, it's one of those hard to explain type things. There's just so much. You eventually map it out in your mind when you play this game, and the massive feeling of wanting to look at everything together is one of the things that makes this game great. The sheer size of everything, the picture puzzle-like way that everything connects, it defeats me verbally. There's so much to talk about, and for so many hours did I play this game, approximately 30 square miles of gameplay, and by God, did I really comb through them. Coming in next, we have Marvel's Spider-Man 2. It doesn't do too much to reinvent the wheel from Marvel's Spider-Man and Marvel's Spider-Man 1.5, Miles Morales, but it does add a lot to the map. That's actually the main thing that changed about the map. They expanded it, they added in Brooklyn and Queens, so the original Marvel Spider-Man map was great, but it only really included Manhattan. But again, it was great. It was fantastic swinging around. It managed to capture the feel of that in a way a lot of Spider-Man games had in the past, but I would say innovated on it too. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 map does that even more. They've got the whole of Brooklyn and Queens, and that map is just twice the size of the original, and the original felt pretty big. It's well made, it recreates the city pretty convincingly. It's not a to-scale type situation, it's definitely changed in proportions, but it gives you the feeling of being one of the Spider-Mans, and I like that feeling. I also like the feeling of a game having a larger map than its predecessor. Spider-Man can go to twice as many boroughs, and that's great. Up next, we have Dragon's Dogma 2. Nothing better than more good Dragon's Dogma, and Dragon's Dogma 2 delivers exactly that. It's substantially bigger than the original and pretty much better across the board. They retain the absolutely epic boss battles against massive creatures, a mix of very challenging dungeons and caves to explore with another beautiful world of plains and mountains. Dragon's Dogma manages to take the stuff expected in epic fantasy games and make it a little bit more creative than most. And Dragon's Dogma 2 really builds on that. Like I said, it's just more and better of Dragon's Dogma, about 4 times the size of the original one, and it feels 4 times as good. Now again, Dragon's Dogma was already a good game, but this is a situation where it's the perfect implementation of sequel. It's exactly what a sequel needs to be, bigger and better, and it has a map to match that. Now it's debatable if it's as dense as the first game in terms of content, but it doesn't necessarily skimp either. It's got an appropriately large map with appropriately large gameplay to match. And finally, at number 1 is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, probably the richest map of any of these games. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has a massive historical map with 2 entire cities to explore. And I mean real old-world cities, twisty, turny, narrow streets. They're results of people just deciding wherever the hell the street should be. There's no topographical design to any of it. It's a maze at times, and it's glorious. The game, as much as it does little to assist you, feels very established, very real, much bigger than a lot of these maps through pure atmosphere. Cities are only one half of the map. The rest is a pretty rich countryside full of interesting stuff to find, explore, and do. This is a game that's about long-term success, slow build toward being a competent person, and feeling some serious satisfaction from it. The locations on this map are further apart than the first game, and you have to really prepare before you head out to explore, or you might end up with a disadvantage in your inevitable duel. This is the kind of game world where you think there's somebody that sees you walking in and is like, "You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts." And I don't know why, it just feels like that kind of game. Like everybody wants to duel for whatever reason. Pacing is slower, more tactical than most of the games we're talking about here. Exploring the massive map can be stressful, but that's 100% the point. And it feels like one of the fullest massive maps in any game ever. If you enjoy the world of Red Dead Redemption 2, then I'm confident that you'll also love this world.